All right, welcome everybody to the Database Team Weekly Meeting. Jump right into it. Listed a couple new items that came up this week. So, excuse me. So restore from backup fails due to irreversible order error. It looks like Stan's on that one. And then Andreas, looks like you added the second one.
Yeah, we're still fighting on some installations with installing extensions, which is mostly a problem due to privileges. So you gotta have a super user to do that. And for installations with an external Postgres, like it is also the case for GitLab.com, this has to be done manually. And I'm adding more documentation and a warning message that is more verbose. Hopefully that helps to at least to understand what is going on when you run into that.
Yeah, didn't we create an issue a while back about testing with least privilege? Something we at least acknowledged and we're going to look into in the future, right?
Yeah, we're still discussing solutions to that with regard to testing. So at the moment, we're just using the super user to run all the migrations.
Okay. Let's see, and then I went back and copied goals from last week. So we went through and marked deliverables as done. We marked all the issues as deliverable for this milestone. And then we're looking at container registry, database alternatives to share with Haley. And that meeting's happening at 30 minutes past the hour, right? So we have 25 minutes till that one starts. I think we'll be done long before that. Let's see, audit events, this was just to create the issue, to formulate the plan for swapping the tables after the UX work was done. Was there anything I missed on goals we were trying to accomplish from last week? This was all that was in the agenda from last week. All right. Goals for this week. So I was asked about progress of audit events because our Epic has not been updated, or issues in the Epic have not been updated, and we didn't have a description in the Epic. So I went through an updated description listing what's required and what's nice to have but not required, and listed the blocking issue. So we're not going to switch over until the UI is done. I listed these 3 issues as required before we go live, and then the rest of them seemed like they were required, not required, but nice to have. Does this look accurate to everybody? Okay. Does it still, I know that's listed as backlog. Another team owns it. I believe they are working on it right now. If they get done, I guess it's a matter of timing. Sorry, I'm answering my own questions. Does it feel realistic to get everything else done in 13.4 if we get a realistic timing on the UI changes? Are there any concerns with what we have signed up for 13.4 in relation to audit events?
That's mostly what is under the required list at the top, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I think this one can probably bump out to a later milestone. It's not required for this one, and it's not required for deployment either.
I mean, we're probably not going to swap the table, but we will have sort of, I think the goal was to have a strategy formulated how we can swap the table once the UX changes are in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we should be able to send the background migration to cleanup. That would be great in this milestone. And then we have like metrics, which is mostly done, it's in review, and documentation, right? That's what we're talking about.
Okay. So they're mostly confident we'll get these done in this milestone. We'll just keep an eye on it over the next couple weeks. All right. What do we have planned for container registry this week? What's the goal for the meeting today?
Yeah, so we've started to, or we've actually sketched an alternative database model. And we're now sort of running this by Haley, who knows much more about the registry than we do, and sort of getting feedback on that. we already bounced a couple of questions back and forth, but this is like, yeah, just an opportunity to discuss that more. And the question is really like, so those are like, there's a fundamental difference with regard to how we would implement garbage collection, which is, yeah, this is the original motivation why we're spending time on container registry anyways. Like, this is the most important point. And the alternative database model would approach that quite differently. That is my impression. And I think one of the goals for today is that we figure out if that is something that we want to go forward with. From a database perspective, I think there is a lot of benefits to have from the alternative model compared to the original one. But yeah, it also needs some thinking about what is the overall strategy with regard to the garbage collection, how we implement that. And I hope to get feedback on this today. And then we have like a lot of follow-up questions if we go for the alternative model that is yeah, figuring out what all the details are, what the container registry needs, and if we match all that with the model. Anything I forgot, Janis?
No, that's it. Together with, in general, what's feasible and what's not. So we have some assumptions and some pending questions. And whether this design follows the APIs and the API codes and the flows that are used in normal registry. So, for example, so some things like what we are proposing for live garbage collection. If you check my latest questions, so there are some issues with live garbage collection. So maybe we cannot do it like that, or we can afford doing it. So there are some pending issues to understand. But in general, from our perspective, it seems to work. So if we can, if this is an acceptable solution, it seems to be way faster than the other design, what Andreas has proposed.
And then from an organizational perspective, the question is like, how do we move this forward? Like, who's driving this? And how do we team up with the container registry team? I think Joao is going to be back next week. But they obviously know much more about the container registry internals than we do. So we totally have to team up on that, and I think.
Yeah, they seem very capable of taking it once we've all agreed on a design, right? Their original design was very thorough. It just, we're making suggestions of better support partitioning. So I think if they agree upon the database design, they can probably take it from there. But that's a good call out to make sure that that's clear once this meeting's done, or series of meetings. I can't imagine it'll all be resolved in one meeting, but once the discussions have taken place, they should be able to handle it. But yeah, we can follow up on that. All right. A couple other items that are in our backlog I figured I'd check up on. So we have the performance indicator work that Janis is working on. Do you have any bandwidth or any goals for this week to work on that, Janis?
Yeah, I want to have it done by this week, but I'm trying to, balance the various issues. But yeah, hopefully it will be done. Most of the code is done. There are pending some tests from my end, and I will send it for review. And then I will also send another MR for the telemetry, so that we start gathering the results, and we'll be done. So this should be definitely in 13.4 in this milestone.
Okay.
If you needed a reviewer, I would volunteer on that topic. Totally
yeah,
interested.
I can set it. Yeah, the only thing I'm pending is making my development over my development environment work correctly, so that I can test Omnibus in dev mode correctly and with Prometheus. Yeah. So
yeah.
So I have the sketch. The code seems to work, but code without not tested code is not code.
Awesome. All right, thanks. And Andreas, looks like you pulled in the workload analysis into 13.4. Are you gonna, do you have any goals for this week?
Depends on how the rest goes. For now, it's a side task for this week. I want to do two things basically. One is basically getting a PG battery report for all the logs that we currently have. So for 1 week, maybe from the primary. And the second is basically doing the same thing as Postgres checkup, but doing that in a more extended period. So I think Postgres checkup captures 30 minutes PG stat statements. And I wanted to see how far I can get with extending that to maybe 24 hours or so. And then see what conclusions we can get from that. Yeah, but it's for now, it's still a side task. I want to finish up the container registry first.
Okay. And Pat, you still have the rake index, rake task to index. On your name, are we blocked? Are we waiting on discussions with Jose and team about the, was it PG repack work instead?
Well,
Go ahead.
well, my status with the PG repack is like, well, I'm coming back now from 2 weeks of time off, and I didn't see any progress on that. And our database is over 8.5 terabytes at the moment. I'm a bit concerned, and I'm trying to emphasize for the execution, going from the smallest objects to the large ones that are bloated to avoid any kind of problems. As soon as I get an update on that, I will keep it with everyone. If you want, I can share the link here of the issue.
Yeah, please.
Sure.
I think what we're coming from with thinking about moving that repack or that reindexing into the application is also that we would be able to do this more frequently than we are at the moment. And
yes,
I think I asked when you were out on vacation, I asked if there are plans to sort of automate the repacking so that this happens more frequently automatically. But I didn't hear, or we don't seem to have plans to do that, right? So it would, for the moment, it's still a manual action to run the repacking. Is that right?
yes, we have some idea. Yes, we have ideas, like some issue. There is some issue written with some ideas on that. But I agree that if we do it, the application would be good. From the other side, I remember in some issue that I wrote some idea or some concerns in Nicolite as well about like if we are treating, if like doing automatically, are we doing just indexes or are we doing tables and taking care of primary keys, or how are you approaching this at the moment?
No, from the application side, just fine. From the application side, it would just be regular indexes for now. So no primary key indexes, no tables. But for the index flow, this is like 90% of the problem. Because typically you don't have to bloat in the primary keys anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in case as well, like we see maybe a bit more in the tables in the .com, but like the volume of data that we have in .com is not what we see our customers. So I do agree with you. I think it would be positive to have this implemented in the tool itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, are we in deadlock at the moment? Do we need to pick one or the other for temporary relief until we have a longer term solution?
I think we would have to do the manual repacking that is already scheduled, at least. Anyway, it's like Jose just said, like it's becoming more of a problem at the moment, I guess. So that would be what we're working on the application side, is more of a midterm solution to automating this.
Okay. So Jose, to allay your concerns, there will be a manual repack scheduled at some point in time once you get settled.
Yes, we have the task. It was with one of my colleagues to be executed, and I'm trying to figure out what happened during these 2 weeks, and I will post some update in this issue.
Okay.
But will be manual, yes.
All right. So, Pat, from your side, is there any work you plan on doing on this week?
Well, so it sounds like still we want to automate it. That's the decision we have, but are we still debating the solution on automating it? I mean, should we use PG repack, or we want to do it in the application code? Seems like maybe we don't have a decision there yet, or do we?
Yeah, so what we would do on the application side is not use PG repack, but rather implement the manual reindexing using plain SQL statements, so no repack.
Just to understand, you will create the index concurrently and rename or something like that, or?
Yeah, so
yeah,
that's
sorry, go ahead, Pat.
the solution I had started working on then. So it sounds like we're in agreement that I'll continue with that solution. So I'll work on that this week.
Okay. And then, sorry, did you answer Jose's question about the implementation detail?
Yeah, it's going to be, yeah, it just creates the new index concurrently with, temporary name, swaps them, and then removes the old one. Yeah.
Which is the same as what PG repack does for regular indexes, just that we don't need PG repack in that case.
Okay. Anything else we need to cover for this week? Like to know if there's no other topics, let everybody get some time back and join for the container registry meeting in about 10 minutes.
Sounds good.
Thanks, everybody.